Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome into the studio. My name is Ken Johnson. I am your resident thrifty apprentice. And today we are talking about gouache. We are going to have us a gouache splashy time. So, for some of you who may know or may not know, I'm taking on two ventures that I'm going to be working on throughout the rest of this year into the beginning of the new year. Two of those two ventures are doing like a gouache, an overall artist professional gouache brand comparison, just of the really, you know, popular, more known brands. And then we're also going to be doing an artist professional watercolor pencil sort of review and comparison. Now, some items in both of those lists will be items that may already have reviews on the channel, so they'll end up with updated reviews. And of course, those things that don't already have reviews will have brand new reviews listed. And then eventually, for each of those categories, there will be a overall comparison video that comes out. So that's some of the things I'm working on in the background that you can expect coming out on the channel while continuing to still bring you the content on watercolor and other water soluble mediums, alcohol markers and color pencils and oil pastels. As you guys know, we kind of do a little bit of everything over here. I'm going to go ahead and start out by congratulating the winner from our our annual Thrifty Cheap Art Challenge. And that short video with the winner announcement was released yesterday alongside the pre-recorded video are these magic wands where we kind of covered the benefits of adding color pencil into your mixed media work and how it can enhance many other mediums that you use it with, essentially making the artwork mixed media. So if you did not get a chance to catch that video, once we're done with the live or when you get a few minutes, do go check out the video release, pre-recorded video release from yesterday. The thumbnail will have like a hand emulating a pencil as a magic wand, and it'll say are these magic. I think that's what it says. But either way, when you get a moment, are these magic wands? That's what it says. When you get a moment, go check it out. This happened Sunday. Uh, where is here we go. So here is the artwork from yesterday's video release. I did the first page inside this design ideation creative arts lay flat paint watercolor sketchbook, and it's funny. I actually have two of these, and I did cover these, or we worked with these inside a Patreon live. And it was at that point that I started working on, I'm going to see if it's, well, I know it's in here. Oh, no, wrong journal. This one. During that live, I started working on this illustration where I was using watercolors. And I wasn't super happy with the way the paper was taking water-soluble medium. Um, Although it does say watercolor on the front. Now, what happened was when I got both of these, I noticed one of them said watercolor, one of them is literally says mixed media at the bottom. 67 heavyweight semi smooth. And then I checked out this one and it says mixed media 67 semi smooth. But I didn't understand why watercolor was there. Well, upon further investigation, I did come to figure out that the paper inside both of them are exactly the same. I'm assuming they just made one smaller and stuck watercolor with a different image on the front, simply because mixed media paper can be used with water soluble products. With that said, mixed media paper is, like all other paper, comes in different quality, and it some of them are better than others. And this one I just do not believe really works that super well with water soluble mediums. I mean, it worked okay here, and I am going to finish this. I started this painting with Royal Talon's Van Gogh paints, and I eventually ended up painting something else doing that live. But I am going to finish that. But to further test this paper out to see if I could use it for other mediums, simply because I do have all these pages in this small sketchbook, I decided that I would do the alcohol marker watercolor pencil video uh, demo from yesterday on this paper, and it worked amazingly for alcohol markers and color pencils. So although it may not work too well for super wet washes, I did find that it worked pretty well for um, well, I would say dry mediums, but I don't really consider alcohol a dry medium. Well, it does dry really fast because it's alcohol, so I guess so. But really enjoyable time. Really enjoyed that video. Go check it out. I'm going to continue to test this paper a little bit more with a few other mediums. Like I said, I'm going to finish it up using solely watercolor just to see how it turns out with the blending on the paper. Although, as you can see from the sky, it really wasn't blending all that well. But you can see down here from the cacti that it would allow you to layer versus blending. So I'm going to figure that out and finish it up. I am going to be doing a couple of other compositions in this book with different mediums just to see what it works the best for. After that, I will do a review on this paper and more than likely give this journal or this sketchbook, which is the untouched big one, away um, for someone who inspires to try it. The great thing I like about these journals is that they do lay flat. They are glue bound, and they are glue bound journals that lay completely flat. And I think that's kind of the gimmick that's selling these. Not necessarily the fact that the paper is all that absolutely amazing and great, but more so that the journal is glue bound, fabric covered, but it will still lay flat without your pages becoming unglued or breaking out of the book. So I think that's sort of the selling gimmick for this particular journal. But stay tuned for more on that coming up in future videos. Like I said, doing the review video of that paper, more than likely I will be giving away that big journal. Okay, moving on. Here is a new little product coming into the studio, or that came into the studio. And I thought it was so cute. It is Crayola pumpkin paint, great for multiple surfaces. Um, Autumn colors. Basically, it's acrylic paint by Crayola. But I think it's going to be a really cool kit. So me and the other occupants of my house have decided what we are going to do is we are going to go out and buy some pumpkins, and then I am going to shoot a video of us just having fun, giving you guys a little different look at something because I don't work with acrylic much. And then to work with acrylic on top of a pumpkin is going to be absolutely amazing and hilarious. So definitely going to be shooting that. You guys can stay tuned for it. I just wanted to grab that and show it to you. Let's start off with, there are two grades of gouache. Three grades depending on who you're asking. Some people use student grade, some people use artist grade, and some people use professional grade. Now, where did artist grade come from? Some people may ask. Okay, let me start now. Artist grade are those products that you see out there on the art market that are typically stamped premium, or they actually use the word artist. Now, I need you to be careful because there are a bunch of budget companies out there that use the title premium on their paints. And I've said this to you guys many times before, that when you see the word premium in a product's title, it typically depicts that the product may be student grade and not professional. Gouache is a funny beast because gouache comes in both jelly gouache, and I think the introduction of the jelly gouache to the entire gouache market was because there was a lack of half pans or full pans in the whole gouache family. Gouache tends to be um, a little bit more finikier. Finikier? Is that a word? A little bit more finicky than watercolor. Most watercolors, especially if they're of any type of decent quality, you can put them in a half pan, let them dry down, and they'll hold. They'll re-wet. You can use them. There's no cracking falling out. Again, I'm gonna top that off with if it's a decent quality watercolor. Gouache is a little different because regardless of the decency of the quality, depending on the gouache, which is the case 95% of the time out of 100, regardless of whose name is on it, gouache does have a tendency to crack and fall away from the sides, fall out the palette. And I think that missing gap is what opened up the demand for jelly gouache. So, what's jelly gouache? Well, this is artisan gouache paint, and they call them gouache paint tubes, but it's actually a set of jelly gouache. And the reason I grabbed that one is because of all of the sets of jelly gouache I have. It's probably the smallest. No, I take that back. I have a Hemi set. Now, don't be alarmed when I open this Hemi set because I want to. All of this is going to be great information. So, this is a brand new set of jelly gouache, and of course, we know that jelly gouache is on the student grade scale of everything, student grade end of everything. There is no jelly gouache out there that is professional, guys. I'm so sorry. It is just not professional quality. It is made to target students and artists that are possibly in college, designers that need something to paint really quickly, that are going to be reproducing their work. I do not, in any shape, form, or fashion, suggest jelly gouache for any type of commissioned work or for any type of work that you are going to be selling, entering into. Oh, I was about to say entering into a competition, but it is 100% gouache. So if it's a gouache competition and you use jelly gouache, I don't see why there should be an issue with that. But definitely not anything that you would want to sell. Okay, gouache is going to shift a lot quicker, I do believe, in light than say your watercolors will. Gouache has heavier pigments in it, or no, let's rephrase that. Gouache has coarser pigments, meaning that the pigments are not ground as finely as they are in watercolors. Now, we know that from watercolors, the heavier the pigment, it causes particle inducement, granulation. You see different textures in your paint. Well, here's the thing about gouache. Gouache is pretty uniform all across the board. They're gonna all dry down flat and matte. That's what you're looking for. Whether they layer thickly without crumbling and falling off and all that type of stuff, that all has to do with the actual quality. So this is what. Oh, that is secure. Now I've never opened this set. This is the first time I'm opening this set of jelly gouache. I've had it sitting in the studio for a minute. I've never gotten around to testing or reviewing it. Simply at this point, I'm just kind of like all jelly gouaches seem to be the same to me. Some of them, the quality is different. For right now, my most two recommended jelly gouaches are the Artwell jelly gouache set and the Anagani jelly gouache set. Those are the two opacest jelly gouaches I've ever run across. And that's what you're looking for mainly in the difference between a transparent watercolor and an opaque gouache. Okay, so I just want to show you what a cup looks like. So this is a jelly cup, and different companies doing different shapes, different sizes. This one is a small one compared to other ones that I've seen, but it is a little bit taller, right? So basically, a jelly gouache cup is a cup of gouache. Excuse me, covered with a plastic film that you pull the plastic film off to access the gouache. You can use your palette knife to dip the gouache out, put it on a separate palette, paint with, because most jelly gouache sets do not come with an actual mixing area on the lid. Something that I would really, really, really like one of these really inventive companies to work out. Now, I get it. You kind of have to give something to get something. What are you giving up in the top of a jelly gouache um, set? You're giving up 90% of the time mixing room. What are you getting? Most jelly gouache sets now are including this foam airtight material on the top of the palette so that when it's closed down, it helps to keep the gouache wet, pliable, and usable as long as possible. With that said, let me show you my Hemi jelly gouache set. This is what happens over time when the top of the lid actually has a palette versus anything or any product on the inside to help keep this palette airtight. What happens is that your jelly gouache eventually dries out, as you can see here. Now, in complete honesty and transparency, when I first got this gouache set, I actually removed the lid to purposely start letting it dry out because I wanted to see how well those paints would reactivate from that dried down state. And this was my very first jelly gouache set, so I was really experimenting. Now, halfway through that experiment, I realized that I did not like the way jelly gouache performed after I let it dry down and tried to re-wet it. Now, at least that's what I thought when I first started. I'm gonna tell you a caveat to that in just a moment. Um, some things I noticed about this set that I was very unpleased with are about jelly gouache sets that don't contain like airtight sealing. Now, I was putting the jelly gouache back in with the airtight seal right after I would, finish using it. It would be wet, thinking to myself, oh, that's wonderful because, jelly gouache is in a wet form. It shouldn't matter. Well, as you can see, I'm missing one because my ultramarine blue continued to mold over and over and over and over again. So I eventually ended up having to throw that ultramarine blue away altogether, which was sad because now I'm missing that particular blue in this set. Not that I grabbed this set too much anymore, especially after um, being introduced to Artwell Jelly Gouache. As a matter of fact, after being introduced to Artwell Jelly Gouache, I haven't used anyone else's. But that's beside the point. Um, I'm sorry, guys. I had a message come through in the background that I really did have to reply to. So just bear with me 1 second. And I normally turn on Do Not Disturb so that nothing is coming through, but I didn't today. I forgot. I really did. Okay, so anywho, that's where that was my experience with the jelly gouache, and I wasn't super happy with that. I decided that for jelly gouache, I was gonna definitely start looking for those companies that put some type of protection in the top of their lid, just to help keep it fresh as long as possible. So when you dry, oh, well, I don't have it anymore. I was about to show you what happens when you take jelly gouache out of the cup and dry it down on a palette, but I have since cleaned that palette off. So I don't know. I may get around to doing this Arteza set. I may not. I'm not quite sure how different it'll be from any other jelly gouache sets I have. I may end up giving it away in a giveaway. I haven't quite decided on what I want to do with it yet. Because I'm honestly I'm out of the market for jelly gouache. I have the Artwell, I have the Anagani, and if I need like practice student grade gouache, I can grab either one of those. Now let's switch over to the other end of this spectrum real quick and talk about professional gouache. Now, professional gouache is a horse of a different color because I have yet to see any jelly gouache cup labeled professional. Most professional gouaches, designer gouaches, artist gouaches come in a tube. Now, this is Turner Design Gouache. This is an Asian company. Turner is known for making really decent, professional quality products that are not going to break your pocket, that are not going to break the bank. Sort of like, say, Paul Rubens, another great professional quality company that doesn't make products that are just going to, break your bank completely. So, let me see. I should have kept one of those cups out. But anyway, so here you'll see um, your designer gouache typically, or design gouache typically includes all of the relevant information that you would expect. You're going to see color name. Here you see pigment number. And that's all of the information on this one. Well, nope. Pigment number. And there is light fast rating. And of course, as far as transparency goes, we're expecting gouache to be opaque, so I never really look for a transparency rating. But I am looking for a light fast rating and looking for pigment numbers. So there's one of the major differences you're going to notice between your student grade and your professional grade gouache. A second difference that you're going to notice is that you can buy your professional grade gouache open stock 95% of the time, meaning that you do not have to buy a set, but that you can go to the seller's website or maybe the website of a big box store and be able to order the gouache individual tubes versus having to order them in a set. That's another indicator of a professional versus. I've never seen a company sell jelly gouache by the cup. Now, if I'm wrong, please jump in the comment section and let me know. Jump in the chat box, let me know. I do not mind learning something new at all. But I don't know of any company that sells jelly gouache, especially in the United States market, open stock. Now, I do know of a couple of companies inside China or inside the Asian market where you can buy refills of your jelly gouache, but that's mainly because gouache is so much more of a hot commodity in the Asian markets. It's used a tremendous amount inside schools, and kids in school come up with art classes, learning design with gouache and all those type things. They have a completely different type of educational system than us. So gouache is a medium that is used a lot in the Asian market, especially in the school scene, on the school scene. All right. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky because I told you earlier, student grade, lower quality, and jelly gouaches will have tendency once they've been exposed to air to dry up, pull away, crack, fall out. Truth of the matter is that can also be the case for professional gouache. We'll stick with talking about Turner. Now, when I initially got Turner, although it's going to be a part of the gouache lineup, I've never done a review on it, which I'm glad I haven't, so that it won't be like redundant or anything. But I did initially pan these up in a half pan. I bought all of these open stock. I got each tube from, I want to say Jerry's Autorama at different times. Because Jerry is, at one point was the exclusive distributor of Turner in the United States, and they still may be. But I'm sure I got it from Jerry's. So I panned up the colors I had at the time, which was what, 5 colors, and since then I removed them from those half pans and put them inside this palette, which they are going to be switching again. But this was just for safekeeping because I was using the palette that they were in for something else. Anyway, as you can see, this is what the dried up gouache looks like. It's still in the half pan shape. It did pull away from the sides of the half pan a little bit. It did dry up and become much harder, dried down, little brick. Nothing like it looks coming out of the tube. However, this re-wets immaculately well. It is amazing at how well this gouache will re-wet. And when I'm looking for a water-soluble art product, especially when it's a paint, I'm personally looking for those products that will dry down and perform well from re-wetting, because I personally am not a from the tube type painter. Have done it many, many times. I just prefer having my paint dry down. So you will find that another one of the major differences between professional and student is that a lot of the designer professional gouache may be keeping in mind that people will work from dry down, so the formulation may not crack as quick or as readily or fall away from your palettes as quick or as readily as a student grade gouache would. So all of that are things to keep in mind. Now, a few tips. I just showed you this. If you are working with a student grade gouache, especially one from the tube that you want to pan up, I suggest you finding something like this. This is like a thread tackle box, right? And then when I pull out what we're painting with today, I'm going to be able to show you another version of a palette like this. But what you want to do is look for a palette where the wales come all the way up to the top of the lid when it's closed, so that if that palette should happen to get jumbled around inside your carrying case, inside your bag, inside of whatever especially on traveling purposes, plein air painting outside, urban sketching. If you like using gouache, then that type of palette will help prevent, especially if it's cracked and dried out, that gouache from jumbling around in the palette and contaminating other well other wells of color. So something to keep in mind if you're ever working with like a student grade gouache that you know is going to dry and crack down. Um, I'll show you another little trick. Now, many of us know that with watercolor, if it's one that has a tendency to dry up, lower quality, you know it's gonna crack. You can add like an eye drop of glycerin to each half pan, a little bit of honey to each half pan, and it's gonna help keep those paints from, drying and cracking and falling out. Years and years and years ago, when I was in design school, my first set of watercolors I told you guys before was prime. And then the very first set of gouache that they ever gave us in design school was Save Our Fair gouache. Now I had to do some research way back then on come to find out that it was pretty decent gouache, right? Now I've used most of it. It was like a 12 tube set, I think. I've used most of it, and I got that gouache set back in 2009, I believe. It may have been 2010. January 2010, I'm sorry, is when I got that gouache set. Now, Sacred Fair, pretty decent gouache, but it's still cracked a little bit. Um, One day while I was painting in class, so when I decided, years and years later, and I do mean years and years later, because I put down Save Our Fair and moved on to other brands. Years and years later, I was digging through a bag of college stuff that I had left, and I ran across those tubes of Save Our Fair gouache. So I said, you know what? Let me play with these. There was only five of them left. I pulled them out. I emptied every single tube into this little nail box that I had. And then inside each of the pans, because I wanted something really big that I can stick big brushes in, I actually dropped glycerin. Now, up until that point, I never actually added glycerin to gouache, only to watercolor. And I had no idea how it was going to work out. Well, as you can see, the gouache still cracked. It cracked, it cracked quite a bit, but it has kept it in sort of like a semi-moist state, which keeps it from falling out the palette. And when I tell you that this gouache has been inside this little box with the glycerin in it since 2018, it is 2024, and it has not dried out, it has not cracked. Um, so basically, the glycerin has been holding that gouache. I panned it up in 2018. Yeah, since 2018. So there's a tip that you may. I've only painted with the gouache like once or twice since I added the glycerin. I did not notice a huge difference in the performance or the way it worked. I mean, gouache does tend to lose just a tad bit of opacity when you're working with it from a dried down form versus the way it's formulated in the tube when you first squeeze it out. So one of the caveats for me, someone who likes to paint from dried down paint, especially when it comes to gouache, is to not only find a gouache that won't necessarily break and fall out and be a mess all over the place, but also a gouache that is going to hold its opacity and vibrancy from its dried down state versus the way it would have performed when it first came out of the tube. So I'm gonna check the comment section really quick before I keep going. Let's see. Hello, JC. I like the strip of pans. I've had to try that when I can get them. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, 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 definitely. If it's what I think you're talking about, the little these things, yeah, Christy will have them available, and Arcs Amber will have them available soon. I will actually contact Christy and see what the release date on those are. I thought it may be October. I have to check to see. Ruby, I have lupus gouache that I dried down. It didn't crack, but it's So hard to re-wet and the paint out streaky. It's too worst thing. Listen, Ruby, let me tell you. I have thrown my Lucas Studio gouache away. I did the exact same thing you did. I bought the Studio gouache set, Lucas. I took and the tubes are huge, so I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting such a great value. I know that Lucas has a pretty decent reputation. I've used the Lucas Studio watercolor paints, which I actually love. Now, before Lucas changed the formulation of their professional paints, the 1862 paints, I really could not tell a huge difference between the Lucas Studio paints and the professional paints. But they have, I guess, in recent years changed the formulation of that professional paint, and they do not perform the same anymore. So, with their reputation in mind, I grabbed the Lucas Studio gouache, thinking that I love the paint so much. The gouache has got to be of some similar quality, right? So I brought it home, and in one of these big things like this, I squeezed everything out of those huge tubes into one. Gave it a few hours, came back, closed the palette up to let it, dry down. Same exact problem. It dried down so hard that it was extremely difficult to re-wet it. They almost became bricks of cement that didn't want to re-wet. You had to like vigorously rub across the top of it in order to get any of the paint out. And then when you would get the paint up, it, like you said, it would be streaky. It's super transparent, nowhere near opaque like you need a gouache to be. Um, the colors were weaker, much, much, much weaker from that dry down form. Therefore, your secondary and tertiary color mixing was just all over the place. So I definitely agree with you. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there now. The Lucas Studio Gouache set. If you are someone who needs to dry it down to paint from it, avoid it. Avoid it. Avoid it. I don't know what's going on with Lucas. Their quality, the quality of their products is surprising to me now. Yes, the watercolors were so good, but the gouache is terrible. Absolutely, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Okay, so continuing to talk about professional gouache. Well, I have a noodle gouache baby here that we are going to be playing around with today. Let me see where we are on time. Oh, good. Good. We haven't crossed the hour mark yet. So, here's what we have. Now, this little cutie, this little pedal over here, this little cutie baby, you're going to see this in Wednesday's video. So, like I said, check that out. This is one of the little pieces that I ordered from Temu. It's an acrylic see-through palette. Absolutely love it. It has this little kind of foam stop gap in the top that completely covers all the way down to the top of the wheels. So just in case this gouache should crack and fall out, I won't have any issues. So what is this gouache? This is the Shinhan Professional Designers Gouache. So notice it says professional and designers on it. Run out Shinhan. So 12 colors included inside this. As a superior blend of the finest colors, Shinhan Professional Designers Gouache for the discerning artist. Flipping it over on the back, absolutely no information. Side panels give you a website. It lets you know that the gouache is made in Korea and that it's copyrighted by Shinhan Art Material Inc. All rights are reserved. There's a UPC code. There are 15 milliliter tubes times 12 of them. Um, and that is all of the information that's actually printed on the box. Let's pull this open here. Pretty sturdy box that they're in. Now, you know me, I may be keeping it to make a journal. So, inside lid, here, Shannon Designer's Gouache says the same thing the box says, but then it gives a complete color list. There are 72 colors in the complete range, and of those 72, we are going to be looking at 12 of them today. Now, because I paint from dried down gouache or dried down mediums, I did have to cheat just a little bit. Instead of opening this completely on camera with you guys today, I did have to go ahead and open these last night and squeeze some down into the palette so that they can at least have a chance to start drying out some, because I'm telling you, painting from wet paint just drives me insane. So let's talk about it. Each of these gouaches come in a 15 milliliter tube that is quite a bit of paint. Let's be clear. Now, most of your student grade gouache is on the opposite end of the scale. If they come in a tube, more than likely they're going to be 12 milliliters or less. They may not be full, they may have air in them, and there's maybe every student grade gouache I've ever used in a tube, it has never failed, has had some binder pigment separation. Of course, you can always rectify that by simply shaking your tube before you decide to use the product or to pan it up. But that's just something I want to throw out. So, as you can see, again, 15 milliliter tube that is aluminum that they're encased in, enclosed with the branding, which says Shinhan Professional Designers Gouache. Each one of them does have a stock number. This particular one is color number 49. It comes with a series lettering. It comes with light fast information. It comes with transparency ratings. Of course, you're going to get the full color name of the color that you're using, and then that'll give you that color name in other languages as well. I really love the fact that they actually include Korean on the bottom of all those languages. I think that's kind of cool. On the very back of the tube, you're going to get the AP stamp of approval, and you know that it does conform to the ASTM 4236 regulation. Again, you're going to get the here you're going to get the pigments that are included in the paint. Again, the color number, color name, and a UPC code because it can be purchased open stock. All right, so 12 different colors. They range from, and I've already reordered these from the order that came in a box and put them in the rainbow order I typically paint from. So the colors included in this one are going to be permanent yellow orange, scarlet red, carmine, permanent yellow, permanent green light, Viridian, turquoise blue, ultramarine light, violet, burnt sienna, ivory black, and permanent white. Um, and we are going to be giving all of those a go. So here you go. You have a screw off cap. Love the fact that we don't have medicine bottle or medicine ointment tubes. You guys know what I'm talking about, where you pierce the top. Came off pretty easily. So here's the thing. All of these tubes were super full. I didn't have any issues with that. Most of the binder and pigment consistency was pretty mixed. I did have a little separation in the Viridian, and I had a little separation in the burnt sienna. Both of those, I took a toothpick and kind of tried to mix the pigment in the binder that came out. And of course, when there's binder and pigment separation, what tends to run out of the tube or rush out of the tube first is the actual binder. And then you see like droplets of the pigment. So that's kind of the consistency that the Viridian and the Shinhan, in the burnt sienna came in. Now, as you can see, they have not had a chance to dry out completely. They've only been drying at this point for, let's see, I did this about, I want to say about 11:30 last night. So let's just say 12 a.m., which would make 12 p.m., what, 12 hours? So almost 12 hours they've been drying now. I don't see any signs of cracking as of yet, but who knows where it'll go. We are going to be working with these though, so it is what it is. Anything else about the tubes that I wanted to disclose? That's pretty much it. They're held inside this little plastic tray to keep each one of them, kind of angled so that the box will close. And there you have that. All right. So what I want to do with this gouache set, I am not unorganized like I was last week when I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because of that dentist appointment. Here we have a accordion journal that I picked up off AliExpress. I had to think about where I picked it up from. You guys know I'm an accordion journal freak. I make them all the time. There are plenty of DIY videos on my channel to show you how to make an accordion journal. But I do like to test other people's out. If you guys remember, the first time we used this paper was when we were doing the Woomer watercolor. Well, was it a review? I think it was a review. And I kind of pulled that landscape up on my phone, painted it out. Well, we are going to be using this paper again. And this time I've kind of sketched out a Cosmo here, mainly because splatters from that got on this page and I want to go ahead and use it up. So yeah, we're painting a flower today. And I know if it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to paint a flower. But if you decide to paint along with me, perfectly fine. You can find the traceable for this particular flower inside the Ready to Paint in 30-Minute Flowers and Watercolor book by Anne Mortimer. If you guys remember, this is one of the 4 educational resources watercolor books that we covered from Thrifty Giveaway Month, which ran hand in hand with World Watercolor Month back in June of this year. So I am going to, I kind of sketched out that Cosmo, and I'm just gonna kind of wing it, painting, looking at this. I'm not gonna read through any of this. Just gonna kind of wing it. Just something really quick to do with you guys, so that we definitely got a painting tutorial done today, as well as something that's gonna help me test out the hand for the first time. So I have my continuous sprayer. I'm just gonna slightly miss those paints, although I think most of them are still kind of, a little wet. And I need to grab a palette to paint on. I do that all the time, though. That's what I need to do. I need to invest in some more mixing palettes so that I'll have them just sitting around ready to go. All right, let's get a little painting done, friends. So, let's see here. I need a yellow ochre color, which I don't really have in this set. And I am going to be using this gouache in a more watercolory style today. Now, that's how I tend to use my gouache. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you probably already know that. I normally start with a watery wash and then use gouache in the way it's supposed to be used, by building thicker layers on top of that. Although I think for this particular composition today, we might not have to do that. So I'm going to use, starting with a number 10 round synthetic squirrel, which actually might not be big enough. Let's switch that to cover. I'm going to go with a 3/4 flat to start out with. And I want to whip my background. Now, I don't know how this paper, keep in mind I've only painted on it once. I played around with another painting on it. So we are still testing this paper to see what kind of life it's going to give us, if it's going to give us life at all, actually. And I'm actually going to go ahead and cover the leaf and stem area, trying to avoid my flower petals. Now hopefully this is going to stay wet and we won't have to do too much re-wetting as we go, but you never know. The paper is a little more on the hard side than some other papers I've worked with, so we will see. I'm just trying to get a pre-wash down here. I don't care if I don't get directly right next to the flower. I'll worry about that with my color. So we're gonna start. I would start with the yellow ochre, but I don't have one, so I'm gonna start with a more golden tone. A yellow that I have here. Yeah, and this is gonna be so interesting. Guys, I painting with this gosh like this, and that is yellow. Let's see. I'm gonna take a little bit of the lemon yellow, put it over here. And as you can see, it doesn't take much. I'm literally tapping the top of the color, and it's like literally, like it's so easy. I'm just mixing a little bit of burnt sienna into that lemon yellow. I know that's not gonna be enough. Water it down. We're gonna see if this is gonna get us through this. Because I just want a light wash on the background. Pretty interesting. I guess I should have taped this down. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I'm just gonna start at the top and bring that wash down. And I'm gonna try to move as quick as possible, but it is quite a few things to paint around. I guess masking fluid might have been a good idea. You guys know I don't use that stuff. Not really. So I'm just gonna have to try to move as quickly as possible so I don't get any cauliflowering or any background. And again, trying to avoid the petal and just paint the stem area. Moving quickly here. The background is wet, so everything should blend out evenly. Turn your paper green. Turn your paper so that your paper works with you. Now, it does make it a little bit more difficult if you like film like I do, because you don't want to make people dizzy, but you definitely still want to make it as comfortable for yourself as you can so that you can try to get the best painting composition. Yeah, this paper is interesting. I have been trying a lot of papers lately, friends, if you guys have been paying attention. And it's gonna eventually lead to a paper video. I haven't quite decided how I'm gonna put it together yet, but it's coming. Because there's a lot of papers on the market, and they are not all made the same. Most of them can be painted on with no issues. So. All right. So there I have everything painted, my background covered in the light wash, my stem, and we need to get the background time to dry just a little. I still want it damp because I'm about to go directly into my background color, which in this case, yeah, that paper is really warping on me, huh guys? That's all right. I'm gonna make it work. All right, I'm gonna grab a little bit more. I need a bluey green. Oh, it don't take much of that paint to come off of there at all, which is a good thing. Um, let's go with ultramarine light. And I use that lemon yellow that we started with. And I'm just gonna mix in ultramarine light until I get a blue green. And that's not nearly enough paint. Oh, it's a beautiful paint, friends. It's beautiful. Even with this semi-wet state I'm using from the pan, it's a beautiful paint. Colors mix so gorgeously. I can't wait to get to the review for this one. That's definitely not a bluey green. See, we need to get a bit more of a blue undertone to that. All right, let's see if we can make it happen, Captain. So now what you want to do is go back in and cover your wash. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. I'm angling my paper so that my paint pools down. And this is where you're gonna have to do some really quick work, especially if you're working on a paper like this, because you are definitely gonna end up with streaks because of how quick the paper dries if you don't move quickly. So, one of the main things I love to tell people is that, the quality, the, any quality product can be painted with, but you do want try to use good quality products whenever you can. Paper, in my opinion, is one of the most important tools in your painting arsenal because you can have some of the worst paints and they will look wonderful on a good quality paper. Now here's a caveat, friends. What's supposed to happen at this point is we're supposed to cover this entire background with the rest of this color, and then go back and blend in a darker green at the bottom. That's how this should go. I guess I can get a bluer green. Again, we're going to cover the cover the stem. Stamen. And we're okay. And don't worry, we're going to be coming back covering this stem with a completely different green. But we just want to try to keep color harmony throughout our picture. So right now we're definitely adding the same colors everywhere. Now what you can do at this point is once you get your background painted, in order to add a little texture to it, just go ahead and, take a wet brush with no paint on it, clean brush, and splatter some water across your background and watch the texture that it creates. Especially if you're a person who don't necessarily likes to splatter paint, but you like the idea of splattering and the texture that it can cause. There's a tip for you. Just use a wet brush with no pigment on it, and splash it in the background. It will give you beautiful texture. As a matter of fact, let's see. Hopefully my paint hasn't dried too much on the opposite side of the paper. Let's see if we can do it. So I'm going to rinse my brush, make sure there's no paint in it, get some of the water off. Splashed it all over my background. And you can see the texture that it's starting to create. All right, friends, I actually need to let that dry. Of course, you see that paper, right? Yeah. So I think I'm going to stick to my own accordion journals. I was thinking about ordering up a bunch of these to include in an art box, but yeah, I really, really, really don't like the way that paper handled that much water. I don't remember it giving me as many issues with this one, and maybe because I didn't use as much water there. I think that may have been what it is. Um, but yeah, so here's where we are on this. Sketched out, background painted. Now the thing is, we're going to be doing a white flower. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the stem in. I'm gonna try to get as much of this painted in the next few minutes, and if not, then next Monday we will definitely finish this before we move on to our next project. But I want to try to get as much of this done. I'm grabbing a synthetic dagger brush. This is a 1/4 dagger. Golden Techline. This is one of Christy Rice's Art for Joy's Sake brushes. I am a huge dagger freak. Love dagger brushes. Didn't realize I love dagger brushes as much as I do until I was introduced to Christy Rice. But it is what it is. I'm gonna grab. Um, see, the thing is, I don't want that too similar. We definitely need a deeper green there, and then we're gonna have to shade it with an even deeper green. So let's do it like this, because I'm not really, other than just kind of looking at the overall color scheme, truth of the matter is I'm not really following the directions in the book too closely. I'm gonna grab a little of that lemon yellow that we've been using. Going back for ultramarine to mix it in. And this time I'm going much heavier, and I do mean much heavier on the ultramarine consistency. I want to get a completely different shade using the same colors. To do what? Keep color harmony. Exactly. So let's just paste this in. And I'm actually leaving a small sliver of that unpainted. And I know it's going to look like one big stem as we start. But of course, you have to do what? Trust the process. And everything is going to be just fine. I promise you that. Alright. So I just want to paint in this stem. And the leaves. I don't know why the word I'm trying to, what the name of the greenery that comes, the leaves that come out from under the plant. I don't know why the name is not jumping to mind right now. I know it. I'm just drawing a blank. And the great thing is you can readjust your image, your shapes. This is where you get to do some editing with your paint if you would like to. I'm making some of them a little bit more pointy, bringing out that shape a little bit more. All right. So who's painting? What are you painting? Who's painting and what are you painting? Our flower is going to be white, so it's going to be pretty easy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab just a touch of the lemon yellow. I mean, right now I'm getting so much color payoff simply because of the fact that they're still wet. And I'm just going to brush that yellow along the top of that leaf. Oh yeah, I've definitely gone my own way at this point. Because this is so not in the book. I just wanted to brighten it up across the top of there. You see how they kind of just made those leaves that are pointing up towards the petal just a little bit lighter. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab, I need, uh, I need my liner brush. All right, friends, and then I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the bottom of this, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So I'm adding more blue to my green mixture to get an even darker green. and I'm using my liner brush so that my lines are going to be super thin. Now, this paint is actually still wet, so I need to be careful. Oh, it's doing a little bit more blending than I wanted it to. I'm gonna go ahead and put this down though. And I may just have to do a little bit more. Once we get everything dry. But it's definitely starting to add a little definition, which I will definitely be adding more of once everything dries. I'm gonna come down the right side, try to keep it straight, although I did. Alright, and now I'm gonna take that damp liner with just water on it, and I'm going to blend so that we don't have harsh lines. Like so. Alright friends, I'm going to have to wrap it up right there. I think that's pretty good progress. This is one of those 30 minutes of painting, 30 minutes or less painting. Um, Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to continue to do, just in case you want to, you decide it's something you want to work ahead on. So basically what's going to happen is that this will follow being folded down here. You want to try to bring it, naturally curve it over so it looks like they meet. And then I'll be adding more shading to the bottom of that once it dries by watering down the deeper green that we're using now. But like I said, that wasn't completely dry, and it really did bleed too much for me. That's okay. So friends, thank you so much for joining me in here today. I know that it pretty quick. I do have some other things I need to go ahead and try to get wrapped up. We talked about an introduction to gouache. We kind of skimmed over some of the few minor differences between a student gouache and a professional gouache. We skimmed over a few minor differences between a jelly gouache versus a tube gouache. Um, we sort of did a little quick unboxing, and I showed you guys where I have tubed and panned, from the tube, I have panned up Shinhan Professional Designer Gouache. I really do want it to dry down a little bit more before I continue to work with it, which is a great thing because it'll be a week from today before I pick this painting back up. Not before I use the gouache again, but before I pick this painting back up to finish it with you guys right here. Truth of the matter is, it's almost done because the flower itself is going to be white. But of course, we know anything white also contains color and shadow. So once we add in the very small amount of reflective color into the petals, the middle part where the stamens are, and just a few shadows under the petals themselves, that's really going to be as much as we're doing because we're painting a white flower. So definitely stay tuned to that. I promise you guys I will not finish this up until we are all back together and we can all finish it together. If you are part of the replay crew and you have any questions about gouache, don't hesitate to drop them into the comment section. If you were here live and you get to going with your day and some gouache thoughts pop in your head, jump back over to the video, drop it in the comment section. If it's a question, I'll be happy to get to it as soon as I can. And I will go ahead and tell you that we will be kind of talking about watercolor gouache in next week's Monday 11 a.m. live as well. gouache because we're going to be finishing this up, and then we are going to kind of be looking at the differences between watercolor and gouache because I do kind of want to keep that conversation going. Soon and very soon, I think next Monday might be the first Monday in October. And if so, then we're definitely going to be talking about Inktober as well. As soon as I jump off of here, I'm going to list all of the relevant links in the video description. The Facebook group Paints, Pencils, Pastels, and Markers, which is sponsored by the Thrifty Apprentice. All artists of all medium and all levels are welcome there, just so long as you promise that you're going to have respect for anybody in the group. Remember that you have to answer the question to agree to the rules and answer the question saying yes, you answered the question, agreed to the rules, because I want to make sure you know the rules before I hit accept. You'll find the link for Defiant Art. Defiant Art website is the premier place to start ordering the bamboo to get the bamboo warrior palette from, as well as original prints that are now being listed over there. So it is literally becoming a full-blown website. So when you guys get a chance, go check it out. Patreon link is in the video, will be in the video description in case you want to join us tonight on Patreon in the Creation Station at 8 p.m. I did go ahead and make that post for that live in Patreon today, so you guys will have access. Hopefully, I will see you tonight at 8 p.m. if you are part of the Creation Station. If you're not, be sure to go check out Defiant Art Thrifty Apprentice on Patreon. Again, the link will be in the video description shortly. See if it's something you're interested in. If so, join us tonight at 8:30. I'm sorry, at 8 p.m. Artist wish list, most recommended product list, all of those things will be in the video description. Guys, go out, have a great week. Don't forget to catch Monday and next Sunday's video. And remember, as I tell you at the end, always just keep creating.